Welcome to See You on the Other Side, where the world of the mysterious collides with the world of entertainment. A discussion of art, music, movies, spirituality, the weird, and self-discovery. And now, your hosts, musicians and entertainers who have their own weakness for the weird, Mike and Wendy from the band Sunspot.
Good morning, Mike. It's Wednesday, and we are in St. Louis, Missouri.
Yes, gorgeous St. Louis, Missouri, right by the Cardinal Stadium.
Yes.
Where I feel it wells up the young Brewers fan inside me. It angers me to see that Cardinals logo.
The Busch Stadium.
Yeah, it makes me think of the 1982 World Series, and that was the first time I cried over a sporting event. I cried, and I even said, I was 6 years old, and I said, if I ever see a cardinal, I'm going to shoot it in the sky.
Oh, Mike.
Yeah,
that's horrible.
I was 6. I was a little low. I was
we'll let it go.
Overreacting. I wasn't 36. This didn't just happen.
But we're in St. Louis, and last night we had a show in Alton, Illinois, which is just, about 20 minutes or so from here?
Yeah, it's just a suburb, and it was really fun. Alton is a very haunted place. So we talked to the expert on hauntings in Alton, Illinois.
That's right. And so this week's show has a little bit different format in that you're just going to hear the audio from last night's interview with Luke Naliborski. Mm-hmm. And instead of our usual song of the week, you're going to hear Mike and I doing acoustic performances of several songs, which is what we did at the coffee shop last night, Mava's Coffee Shop. If you ever get a chance to stop there, it's a really cool place, and they make a great cappuccino.
Yes, they do. No, the coffee was great. And you can hear that because Wendy and I are a touch jacked up. I think you'll be able to hear how open our eyes are.
Yes.
But this is an experiment. It was our first live podcast.
That's right.
And so, let us know how it sounds. Let us know if you enjoyed the live format versus the pre-recorded format. And just, please, we're always looking for feedback.
And you will hear the coffee maker going, the espresso machine, and the beans grinding and everything.
It's a setting at a coffee shop.
Of course.
And they've got to eat.
That's right.
So they had to make coffee for people.
Yes. So, and just another quick announcement before we get into the audio from that. Mm-hmm. We will have a bonus episode tomorrow, which will be our live performance we're going to do tonight, which will be a similar thing, but we're interviewing another expert in local hauntings in Little Rock, Arkansas. So,
all right. So make sure you check that out. Bonus episode of See You on the Other Side coming out tomorrow.
And we're going to dive right in because I forgot to hit record at the beginning of our intros. So we'll just cut you right into the middle of the intro section.
To Luke Naliborski from Alton Hauntings.
Here we go.
Weird things, strange science, afterlife stories, UFOs, conspiracy theories, things like that, and then we tie it into pop culture. And at the end of every podcast, we always play a song inspired by the topic we talk about. So like last week, we talked about conspiracy theories and the Illuminati, and so we had a song about conspiracy theories inspired, using that as a metaphor.
And we've also talked about things like El Chupacabra, and that inspired a song that we just released today, too. So.
Oh, that's right. We released it. I completely forgot. Like the day's half over, and like
I know.
We released a new EP today too.
But those topics are fun. So anything unusual or mysterious or things we're not totally sure of, we like to talk about them.
And so we're from Madison, Wisconsin, and we're coming through on a tour. We're going to play during South by Southwest in Austin by Thursday, hopefully, if the band makes it. And so as part of what we thought we'd do try a live podcast. We've been doing this podcast since Halloween, one episode per week, which means one song a week, which means no sleep. And so we thought this would be the perfect place because it's got some stories about it. And we're here with Luke from Alton Hauntings, and they do haunted tours of the town and stuff like that. And we thought, who better to talk about weird stuff in Alton than Alton Hauntings. And Luke, why don't you introduce yourself real quick?
All right, my name is Luke Naliborski. As he said, I'm one of the tour guides for the Alton Hauntings Ghost Tours. I've been doing those for about 7 or 8 years now. I got into the paranormal around 2001. I don't know if you guys remember the store that used to be here in town, the History and Hauntings Book Company, that was ran by Troy Taylor. I had went in there one night and bought a whole bunch of books for myself, and then when I went to pay for them, the guy opened the book up and started writing stuff in it, and I was like, what the hell, 'cause I'm like, what's he doing? And we got outside, and I asked my wife, I'm like, what did he write in the book? And she looked and she realized that was Troy Taylor. So he was just signing his name was
Oh
what he
my
was doing.
gosh. How
And
cool.
yeah, so then we were actually up this way for the whole weekend for our anniversary, and we went back into his store, and then I kind of got to talk to him a little bit, and he told me about the tours in Alton, and I went on one of his tours, and he kind of hasn't been able to get rid of me since. So we've done a lot of adventures together. We've gone on investigations all over. Back in 2002, I believe it was, we did a little stint on the Learning Channel for a TV show called America's Ghost Hunters, Mysterious World, or something like that. And they took investigative groups from all over the country and had them do their examples of how they would do an investigation. And, us being part of the American Ghost Society, we use a lot of history to explain hauntings. There was another group who did EVP, which you guys are familiar with, but for those of you who aren't, it's a electronic voice phenomenon. It's where you ask questions in a haunted location, use some kind of recording device, and you try to get responses to the questions.
And you guys should look up, if you haven't listened to EVPs, you should Google EVPs sometime, because you'll hear some super scary stuff. And whether it's real or not, just hearing like some voice like saying, "Get out," or something, it scares the crap out of you.
And the worst part of that is you don't hear the "get out" until you get home and listen to it.
Right.
And you realize, oh my God, if I would have known he was wanting me to get out, I probably would have. But you're still sitting there asking more and more questions. So
Yeah, you're oh, hi, I like your house. How, and then he's going, get out now.
yeah, that's just what they say to me. That's what live people say to me. So, no, but as far as, Troy's funny because he's like the guy that really set up the Midwest as far as when it comes to ghost stories and building your own business off it and things like that. He's an inspiration. And he was really funny that I've never been to Alton, but I met him in New Orleans one time. We were just walking around, and my sister had known him. My sister started the ghost store in Milwaukee.
Okay.
And so we were in New Orleans, and she's like, "Hey, Troy, what's going on?" And he was just waiting in line at some bar. And I was like,
that sounds like Troy, actually.
This was really random. And so when we started planning our trip to Austin this year, I was like, well, we should probably see what's going on in Alton. And glad we did. So
yeah, and I was just going to say really quickly that when I Googled, Alton paranormal hauntings, I was astounded by the amount of information online because I've researched other cities and places that we're heading toward, just to kind of see what's cool, what's happening. And it was just link after link after link of the history and the different tours that are here. So I was pretty excited that, I'm pleasantly surprised to see how many different...
Right, yeah, they call Alton one of the most haunted small towns in America.
Wow.
And I mean, there's, our tours, we hit Broadway and 3rd Street, and that's about it, and that's going to be 3 to 4 hours long, and it's just a big little oval there, and I mean, there's just so many stories, and the tour could be 3 times as long if we told you everything we knew just along that route.
Are you from this area originally?
I grew up in Belleville, so it's about 40 minutes from here.
We used to play at a place
We're
called
familiar.
the 313 in Belleville.
Yeah, on Main Street, yep.
And there used to be a store called Beatniks with like Bell Vegas t-shirts and
you
stuff.
got it.
Yeah, no, we've had a lot of, I don't remember that much about Belleville, except that we had fun.
That's no, that whole district there along, that's East Main Street, and it's real historical too. A lot of ghost stories along that road too.
That's cool. Maybe we'll have to go back there again.
There you go.
I think so.
Check it out.
I think so. Okay. So, did something, like you said you were getting into it in like 2001, 2002. Did you have an experience or anything like that kind of made you, that was like, hey, now I got to check this out?
Yeah, actually, a couple things. One was, as a kid, I remember this, I was 6 years old, and my aunt was babysitting my brothers and I couldn't sleep, so I was flipping channels, and I watched The Shining. For the first time. So I'm a 6-year-old, 6-year-old kid.
Yeah, that was 6 years old. Yeah,
when I watched The Shining. So I think that kind of started it a little bit. And then you guys might remember those scary stories books that you could get in grade school. They had the real cool sketches in them. I used to love reading those.
Those are cool.
And I think the biggest story for me as far as the ghost story growing up involved a house that was catty corner from ours. And...
Wait, did you say catty corner?
Catty corner, yeah.
Okay, that's the first time I always heard kitty corner.
Oh, no, I always say catty corner.
Okay, so no, I don't
know.
Tomato, kitty corner, catty
regional
corner.
dialects are fun.
Right. So, kitty corner. That's what you want.
Yeah, okay,
kitty
now
corner.
it makes sense.
Yeah, okay. From our house, and I used to have to walk past this house every day to school. And nobody lived in this house. It was vacant for years. And there was one time whenever there was a local charity organization that actually turned it into a haunted house for the Halloween season.
Cool.
And they were having a lot of things happen in this house, and there was actually a big write-up about it. Like, they would build a wall, and then the next day they'd come in and the wall would be dismantled and all the boards would just be stacked up.
Okay.
Or, while they were working, they would set a hammer down, go get nails, come back, and the hammer would be gone. Things like this were happening. And as a kid, though, part of me wondered if they were just saying it for promotional. So, because it got a huge write-up on the front page, so it's good publicity.
Great marketing ploy.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, after the haunted house closed down and everything, they had left a candle in the first floor window. So every time I would walk past that house, I would see the candle. Well, then there was one day where I was walking home from school, and I saw the candle was gone. And I'm like, that's weird. And I kind of looked up, and it was in the second floor window, which should not have happened. Because, again, the place was empty for so long.
Yeah.
And it kind of surprised me a little bit, but I just, blew it off. Well, then a couple weeks later, if you were sitting in our living room and looked out our big family window, you could see right at this house. And I don't know why. I just looked out the window, was looking at that house. It was dark out. And all of a sudden, down in the basement window, I could see light. And I'm watching this light, and it was getting brighter and brighter. Then all of a sudden, you actually see a candle flame going down like that past that window, because that was the window with the basement stairs.
Okay.
Well, the next day when I went to go to school, the candle was gone. So that was my first brush with the paranormal.
Yeah,
now, also,
nice.
also at that house, there was one time where there was a guy out in the yard. It had a real big yard with trees, and a guy was cutting these trees down. And he was stacking the wood up, and my stepdad told my brother and I to go over there and ask if we can get some of this wood for our fireplace. So a little bit later after he said that, we ran over there. Well, the guy was gone. So we thought, well, maybe he'd be inside. So we went to the front door and started knocking. Now, as we're knocking on the door, you could hear footsteps of somebody coming to the door, but they never answered it. Well, then you would knock again, and you'd hear footsteps coming to the door again. You never heard the footsteps leaving the door. It was always coming to the door.
Strange.
So I think it was on the third time we knocked and heard these steps that we just went in and assumed nobody was home, and we ran back home. Well, then the following weekend, the guy was out cutting wood again, so we ran over while he was outside, and we asked him, if we could borrow some of the, or if we'd have some of the wood, and he said, sure, go ahead, help yourself. And we said, do you live here now? And the guy said, oh no, this place is empty. And we said, well, we came last week and we're knocking on the door, and we heard somebody come, and the guy just smiled, and that was it. So, he didn't say anything about it being haunted or anything like that. But
interesting.
Since then, the house has actually been torn down, and they built another one on its spot. But that's my first personal experience.
That's pretty cool. I mean, to get to see those things firsthand.
Oh yeah.
Question and wonder, especially like with the candle thing.
Yeah, no, the candle was great. I mean, I can still see it today, just how it looked.
So when you so when you started to get into it, you started hanging out with Troy, and you're like, hey, maybe there's a business in this, or what were you? Because it is something because I started a ghost tour in Madison, Wisconsin, and it really it's fun, haunted history, and I haven't seen anything weird on that particular path, but a lot of other people have, and it's a fun thing to do. But it is kind of when you talk about getting into it, when some people are like, oh, are you interested in the paranormal? Most people are like, I think you're nuts.
Right.
So, was it hard to get started into it?
Well, actually, for me, it's not a career. It's a hobby. So, I have fun doing it.
Sure.
And, I don't have to, if things don't go right, it's fine. I really enjoy doing this.
You don't have to start killing people to make ghost stories. You're like, I need some ghost stories
not at
here.
that point yet. I think what I always tell people is, when they say, why do you do this? And, well, to find the answers, to see are ghosts real? But then in the back of my mind, I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, you know what? I hope we don't find the answers, because I'm having so much fun, looking for it,
Right.
And if we find the answers, well, then maybe it's not going to be as much fun anymore. So, we enjoy doing it. I love telling stories. When all these people leave, as long as you guys are still here, I'll keep telling stories. So it doesn't matter to me. I just love telling stories.
Yeah, we do too. Feel like hearing them and
right.
Throughout our travels across the country, we've played at a lot of venues that have stories of hauntings, and we've explored. Even some of the venue owners have taken us down in the basement areas and stuff. And it's just so neat because each place has its own stories and history, and the folklore that from owner to owner and from patron to patron, the stories, how they change, and as people see different things, it's just fascinating to
I
learn those
totally
things.
I love, as much as I love telling stories, I love hearing stories too.
Yeah,
So.
that's cool.
Yeah, but as far as the career of this, I started getting into investigations. Troy actually introduced me to some people that I worked with for a little bit, and they lived on the Missouri side. So when we're doing investigations, it meant a lot of late nights, you know. So
sure.
I worked with them for a while, and actually had one of my first. You know, everybody whenever they think of hauntings, they always think of full-figured apparitions, you know, and ghosts, and you know,
Right, like a big white sheet coming.
right,
at you.
yeah, and it's not like that, you know. And I always have the conversation with people where it's not like television at all, you know. And people have these misconceptions of what an investigation is like. It's not that way. And but I have been lucky enough to see what I think were at least 5 full-figured apparitions since I've been doing investigations, which is a lot.
Yeah.
It's like a full, like
to the extent where like I'm looking at you and then realize that you're not real.
Oh
You're
my
not,
gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I am not real.
Right.
That's the thing.
That gives me the chills.
so, well, one of my favorite stories, and Troy actually always preaches about this too, and you know, I always say the same line that he does, is when people say, man, I wish I could see a ghost, his response is always, how do you know you haven't? And if you think of all the strangers you've encountered in your life, you know, if you
That's
don't actually
true.
go up and talk to them, how sure are you, you know, if they're real? And one of those experiences happened to me on one of Troy's tours, actually up in Decatur, Illinois. It was
wow.
at the Greenwood Cemetery. And the cemetery is amazing. It's
I've been up
yeah,
to
very
I've been to
historic,
Decatur for
old,
that.
and Indians buried there, Civil War soldiers, prominent Illinois politicians. I think there's one guy who's supposedly buried standing up. So on Judgment Day, he'll be the first one ready to go. Because everybody else will have to get up and start walking. He's already going to be standing.
Well, sorry for the
on
grave digging.
Judgment Day, I'll be the one hiding.
That's right. No, but whenever we walk into the cemetery, and we're doing this late night tour. So I mean, it started about 7, and it was going to end about midnight. And
So
whenever
you're doing a 5-hour, like
this was a really long tour. And I mean, when you walk in, the place is massive. There's just so much stuff. And, you know, the group was about 30, 40 people, too.
Wow.
So that slows things down,
Yeah.
too. It's not like just a handful of people where you can move pretty quickly. Well, whenever you first walk in, on the right-hand side, there's all these mausoleums. And we walked past the mausoleums, and then we made a left-hand turn because the path splits into a Y, made the big loop, came back around. Now, where those mausoleums are, they call it Mausoleum Row. Where the Y would go to the right, there's another mausoleum that's offset from the rest of them.
Mm-hmm.
And the back window was busted out of that mausoleum. So that meant that we had to stick our cameras in there and take
course.
pictures and stuff.
Sure.
So, but by doing that, the rest of the group were getting away from us, which meant that they were going to be out the gate. You know, we were going to be in the cemetery by ourselves.
You're going to be trapped in there?
So I know. So I told the 2 guys I was with, I said, come on, we better get moving, otherwise we're going to get locked in. So we started to walk. Now, as soon as we turned the left-hand turn to get back on that Mausoleum Row path, there's a mausoleum on the very left corner, like right away, and it had these bushes on each side of the steps that led up to it. As soon as, like, my vision broke that first bush, there was a woman sitting on the steps. Now, she had her hands on her knees. She's looking straight ahead. And when I saw her, and I'm not ashamed to admit that I know I screamed like a little girl because I didn't expect to see her. And I said a couple obscenities. I jumped back. I, like, jumped into my 2 friends. They started busting up laughing. You know, it scared them at first,
Because they
too.
hadn't seen her?
No, they did it. By the time when I jumped, they saw her at that
Okay.
point. And then I said, oh, my God, you scared me. And we just started busting up laughing. And then we started walking. Now, I thought that she was just a woman who was on the tour and she sat down and catch her breath. We got to the gate, and Troy said, all right, Matt, Luke, Adam, you guys are it. Grabbed the gate and started to close it. And I said, Troy, there's still a woman in there on those steps. And he said, no, everybody's checked out. And we looked down the aisle, and there was nobody there. So
Oh, man.
we started to walk to our car, and you could just tell the wheels were turning on all 3 of us.
Right.
And finally, I know I was the first to speak up. I said, you guys saw her, right? And they said, yeah. And I said, she never once changed her expression that whole time. And they're like, no, she didn't. I said, if you would scare, you know, a 30-year-old guy enough to scream like a girl, you'd be busting up laughing. You know, or if you scared him enough, you'd make sure he was
You'd
okay.
react
Right, you
somehow.
say
And
something
then
like,
you-
hey, don't worry, I'm not a dead person.
Right, yeah. And then if obviously if he wasn't hurt, you know, you would be laughing at that point. But the whole time she was looking straight ahead.
Wow.
You know, and
Interesting.
never changed her facial expression, never changed her movement, just hands on her knees. And, you know, I told the 2 guys I was with, I said, you know, if Troy didn't tell us, you guys are it, and start to shut the gate, we would have kept walking, got in our car, and never thought twice about it. So, but, you know, since he said that, and then we kind of realized, man, I think we
She
might have
wasn't
seen a
with the group.
ghost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, she was probably like, why are you sticking your
Yeah.
hand in my mausoleum?
Right, that's right. But people were asking, you know, they would always ask me when I tell the story, well, what was she wearing? Like, I have no idea because she looks so real to me. I didn't pay attention to what she
Yeah,
was
you don't
wearing.
notice what every single
Absolutely.
person you see is
Right,
wearing
exactly.
and remember it
I mean,
specifically.
she just looks so real.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
No, that's an interesting. So you saw that on one of the tours.
On one of the tours,
and
yeah.
that's actually the best commercial for a tour I think that I could hear. It's you should come take the tour because you'll see dead people.
Right. No, and on our tours here in Alton, I mean, a lot of people they come with the expectation that they are going to see a ghost.
Okay.
We've actually had people email us and say they want their money back because they didn't see a ghost. And, we always make it clear up front that, we can't promise you anything is going to happen. Yeah. And if something does, we want it to be real. We don't want it to be us.
Or somebody jumping out from behind the...
Actually, we use a line similar to that. I always say, at no point on the tour will somebody jump out with a chainsaw and a hockey mask and try to scare you. And I say, but if they do, run like hell because they're not with us. So it's... People want to get scared, and that's why a lot of times during the fall season, it's a different crowd. We do tours year round. We'll start back up in April. You get a different crowd during the fall as opposed to the spring and summer. A lot of times the fall crowds, they want to get scared.
Sure, that's Halloween time.
Yes, in spring and summer, they want to hear the stories. They want to hear the history and stuff like that. And I mean, you get a heavy dose of history on our tours.
Very cool.
Okay.
Sounds interesting. I want to go now.
Yeah, no, I want to go too. But... Now, Alton, Illinois, though, has some history to it, though.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's a couple of interesting things that have happened here.
There's actually, quite a bit. The town's about 200 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, we think it got its start around 1814.
Wow.
When there was a gentleman named Colonel Rufus Easton, came to the area, offered a ferry service, taking people across the river, and then thought that this area here would make a great place for a city. And you guys, I mean, I'm not sure how much driving you've done in town, but by the way the town is laid out, you'd be like, this is a crazy place to build a city because there's so many hills. And but he did it, and people bought the land, and he became very wealthy from it. And eventually, the bad thing was he didn't own all of this land that he was selling. So eventually, he was pushed out of town, and some land speculators and investors bought the land. But the town grew and turned into what it is today. So the town's very old. A lot of theories with ghosts involve waterways. And we got. A couple rivers here that connect.
Right.
We have the Confederate prison here in town from the Civil War that, whenever it was the first Illinois state penitentiary, actually.
Okay, so the Confederate prison. Mm-hmm. So Illinois was part of the Union.
Yes.
So that was where they keep prisoners of war.
Yes.
Okay,
so,
interesting.
Yeah, Confederate prisoners
that place
were there.
has got to be haunted. Everything with the Civil War is haunted crazy. And you can
seems
just
that way,
hear
doesn't
that
it?
sad violin coming on like the Civil War.
Yeah, the prison's gone now. It's torn down, and there's actually a parking lot where...
There's no Confederates still
No,
there.
no. Well, no, the Confederates are still there.
Oh, I guess.
Yeah,
right, they are still there.
They are.
They haunt the parking lot?
They haunt the parking lot. No, I'm serious. Yeah, where the parking lot was is the courtyard of the prison.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of men died, in that courtyard. And back in the 60s is when they actually tore up the courtyard and built this parking lot. So back in the 60s, people would report seeing hippies walking across the parking lot and then disappearing. And they called them hippies because, it's the 60s. And they had long hair and ratty clothing. Maybe they were barefoot.
Sure.
Today, they're still seen. And we don't call them hippies anymore. Now they're called homeless people because of their appearance. But then, then they disappear.
I thought you were making a joke about hippies for a second. I'm like, I mean, I've seen a couple.
Yeah, no, but that's what people think they are initially when they first see them, and then they realize, after they disappear, that it was something more.
Wow,
but that prison, like I said, when it was first built in the 1830s, it was the Illinois State Penitentiary. It closed down in the late 1850s, and then around late 1861, early 62, it turned into the Confederate prison. And when it was a state-run facility, it was very, very poor conditions there. So the men were not taken care of. It held about 600 men comfortably. At the height of that being the Confederate prison, they had over 1,600 men inside that prison. So 5 foot by 7 foot cells with like 6 men in each cell. Some of the people who lived through
everybody in the 1860s already smells bad.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And that's the thing too, the disease, and the sewer system was very poor. Mm-hmm. The stories about this place with the sewage system was they built a latrine in the courtyard, and that's where the men would relieve themselves. The latrine was right next to the drinking water trenches.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that was terrible.
So things mix, and it was just awful. So, and even with the Civil War, and obviously the prison was no different. First off, I love Civil War history. So,
Civil War.
I could tell.
But the over 600,000 men died during the Civil War, and for every one that died to battle, 2 died to disease. And in this prison, smallpox broke out in the prison and completely devastated these prisoners, and they were losing 8 to 12 men every day just to this disease alone. And when you have 6 men crammed into a 5 foot by 7 foot space with smallpox, 2-week incubation period, spread by contact.
Right. As soon as somebody sneezes, you're all.
Yeah. If one of your buddies brings it in with them, you're all going to have it. So it started wiping out, all these prisoners here in the prison, and very sad. And we have an island that used to be out in the river. It's actually pretty well completely washed away at this point. The island, it's gone through a series of names. It was called Bloody Island for a while because it was where all the duels were fought, because neither Illinois nor Missouri claimed the island. It was also called Sunflower Island. And
so duels were fought there because it was a no man's land between Illinois and Missouri,
free of any kind of local law enforcement. So,
so that's where you could challenge a person to it. We can't do that today.
No, not today. Well,
because I'm looking around here and I'm just thinking,
our waiters on.
Whose number could I get? Like let's make a ghost story.
Nice. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's keep that in mind with the duels, because I want to come back to that for a second.
Okay. I love duels.
But it was Sunflower Island. After that, Sunflower Island was the place you went out to with your friends and family and swam and picnicked and fished.
Oh my gosh.
It's nice. With the bodies.
But then, when the Confederate prison came, it was no longer Sunflower Island. Now it was called Smallpox Island, because all the sick prisoners from the island were taken out. All the prisoners from the prison were taken out to that island.
Coming this fall to Smallpox Island.
That's right. It was kind of like Shutter Island. But no, with the duels, a lot of people don't know this, but Abraham Lincoln was supposed to fight a duel out there.
Whoa. Honest Abe himself.
Honest, yeah. Him and a gentleman, I haven't told this story in a while, James Shields. He was a state auditor in Illinois. And Abraham Lincoln and Shields did not agree with each other. And Lincoln wrote some very nasty letters to the newspapers, and he had them published. Now, he signed a fictitious name of Rebecca, but somehow James Shields found out that Abraham Lincoln had wrote these.
Because Rebecca was his name when he went out.
That's right. Sure.
He's the party. Abe.
Nice. So whenever he found out, about this, he told Abraham Lincoln that you need to take back what you said, release an official apology. And Lincoln said, what I did was political satire. I don't have to. I'm free to do so.
Sure, yeah.
And so Shields challenged Lincoln to a duel. And then Abraham Lincoln, he thought the idea of a duel was ridiculous, but he said he would fight him as long as they could have it out with cow pies.
Well, okay.
Yeah,
Seriously?
duel
I think I'd rather do a regular duel.
I know.
That's such an Illinois way of handling it, too. We got plenty of them.
He was just trying to show, this idea is stupid. And then Shields obviously wasn't going to accept that, so he kept challenging him. Then Abraham Lincoln said he would fight him as long as they did it on like a 12-foot plank of wood that was 10 inches wide with swords. Again, trying to just make the idea be ridiculous. Finally, Abraham Lincoln actually agreed to fight this duel, and they came to Alton to do it.
Wow.
So they left their friends and their family on the side of the river. They got in the boats, headed out to the island with the doctor and their seconds and their witnesses. And when they got out there, James Shields allowed Abraham Lincoln to choose which weapon they were going to use. So Lincoln chose the broadsword. And then he started hacking some tree branches off of a really tall tree. And then James Shields, who was a whole lot shorter than Lincoln, realized how much of a reach Lincoln was going to have, and decided that, hey, maybe we can work this out by talking. So, actually, the story about this gets even funnier, because as to not let the friends and family down, they took a log and they put this red shirt over the log and sent it back in the boat to the families, who then saw this bloody carcass coming and started screaming.
Terrible.
I know, but it was funny.
So cruel.
They started screaming, thinking it was their loved one, and then Abraham Lincoln and James Shields actually came in the next boat laughing.
Yay!
And then they all went into the taverns and the saloons and celebrated the fact that they were still alive. And the interesting thing about this is Abraham Lincoln and James Shields actually became very good friends after this.
Sounds like a good bonding experience.
If only he could have done that with Jefferson Davis, a whole lot of people wouldn't have died.
Things would have been different.
You guys could have hugged it out.
But when I tell this story, I always tell people, this is one of those what if stories. I mean, what if Lincoln fought that duel and lost?
The whole history.
And not only Lincoln, but James Shields. I mean, he worked in the Missouri and Illinois legislature for years. He was a brigadier general during the war. I mean, he was a very prominent man as well. And I mean, not up to the level of Lincoln, but still two very prominent people could have been lost if they went through with that.
Sure. No, that's great. I mean, on Smallpox Island.
Out on Smallpox Island.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
So today, does that place have any stories or anything like that?
No, it's the island's pretty well gone.
Okay.
Yeah, with all the locks and dams that have been built in the river, washed it away. The saddest part of that is a lot of those soldiers who died on the island were buried on the island.
Oh, that's
and
very
their
sad.
bodies went with
gone,
it.
sure.
Yeah. Back in the early 1900s, there was a newspaper reporter from the area who wanted to write a story on this. And when he went out to the island, it was already starting to erode. And there was an overturned tree. And entangled in the roots of that tree were two human skulls from two of these soldiers who were buried there on the island.
Oh, wow.
Man.
So he actually took one of the skulls home. I have no idea why.
Sure, that seems like a great idea. It's like,
Right.
I'm going to take this home, maybe put a candle in it or something like that.
Something nice. Yeah, he took it home and then he put it in his closet. And years later, after he had moved out, his mom was actually cleaning the closet and found the shoebox and pulled it out, and here there's a skull in it. And she started freaking out that, her son had this other side to him.
Right, yeah.
And, so she actually threw it out to try to cover up for her son. She didn't know what it was.
That's a great mom.
Oh, yeah.
She's like, don't worry if you kill somebody.
Looking out. Yeah.
Okay. We haven't talked about where we are today.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we said, hi, we're from Mavis Coffee, live in Alton, Illinois. But we didn't say that we're in the Milton Schoolhouse.
Yes.
And this place has some weird stories associated.
Yeah, it's
like now it's a coffee house, and it's bigger than just a coffee
there's a
house.
whole bunch of little shops inside here. So this is just one of them. But yeah, the school was built in 1904, and it was open, I believe, for about 80 years before it closed down. There's a lot of stories, and we were kind of talking about this a little bit earlier with ghost lore, where stories are kind of created to explain a haunting. And this building has one of those stories. I mean, there's a story that's been passed off as truth about a little girl who was murdered here by a janitor. It's not
like
true.
a Freddy Krueger kind
I
of
was
story.
going to say that sounds like the classic school kind of story thing.
And then the janitor committed suicide. Some people say it was suicide. Some people say it was one of the students' parents getting back, or taking justice into their own hands.
Did Wes Craven write that story? That is the first, like Nightmare on Elm Street,
right? But it's it's actually it's not true. There's a couple stories about a janitor possibly dying here. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. All I can say is with this building,
with how much barf that elementary school janitors have to clean up.
I know, yeah.
Like,
the
I can
energy.
see him wanting to kill himself.
That's right.
He's like, if I got to take out that stuff, that little powder or whatever they put on
the sawdust.
if I got to do that one more time,
Right.
I'm just going to jump off the roof.
No, if you think about the amount of energy though that has been spent inside this building, when you have 80 years of little kids running around, I mean, to have a haunting, it doesn't take a death, or anything like that. It doesn't take some kind of tragedy. Especially like theaters. I mean, I think that's why theaters are so haunted.
Absolutely.
Is the amount of energy that has been spent in theater from people watching movies and then crying or laughing, and that emotion can remain and replay itself. And I think with schools, it's kind of the same thing.
That would make sense.
Yeah, the energy and the emotion from these little kids running around, and that can hover back, and that's why you might hear a ball bouncing, or you might hear footsteps and things like that.
That's pretty neat.
So there was that legend, and you think that it's because the place has stories in the beginning, but people don't have a ready explanation for them. And ghost stories always have to be gruesome.
Right. Usually
it seems like they're often gruesome.
Mm-hmm.
So so that kind of grew around. Probably somebody just watched Nightmare on Elm Street and it's like, let's talk.
Yeah, let's.
I think that's the way the Alton Schoolhouse is. So I mean, but it was funny, and then for the people at home, I told this story to these guys earlier. But when I was unpacking the van and we were bringing stuff in here on a whim, a little kid just pops out of the back and goes, "Do they still see ghosts in there?" And I'm like,
It was kind of weird because they kind of just came out of nowhere.
Right, the kid. I mean, was that an alive person?
I don't know. I didn't see him.
It could have just been. It was one of the first encounters with Altonites that we had. So
Altonistas.
So maybe they were just welcoming us because all I heard was ghost, and I said, "Oh, maybe
it was
somebody
just
knows
a
we're
really
here."
fun, just a random thing. Like we're just hanging out, and the kid just asks about that, and I'm like, "Well, I don't know, but today we're gonna find out."
Did you watch him walk away?
No, I didn't actually, because I was more worried about the snare drum falling on the bass amp.
I got you.
And I was like, "Oh God,"
Because he might have just faded away.
that would have been awesome.
Possible.
Gotta watch.
So like, I think it's really. I mean, it's fun. It's always fun to be inside these kind of places, and that's why theaters and stuff and bars and venues are always great for that. Especially anything over 100 years old. You got to have some kind of story.
I know here one of the most common activities is where the lights actually get brighter.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Did anybody see it?
Yeah, I think that kind of freaked me out.
Whoa. That's well, but that does happen at places. We've had experiences at
Yes, we
at venues where with the lights.
Oh, yeah.
At certain times of night, and the bartenders go. We thought they were flickering the lights to tell us like last call.
Yeah, you're done. Yeah.
And they're like, no, it's just every night the lights. This about this time. They're just saying hi or something. We're like, okay, that's nice.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, it's like, what do you mean they're just saying hi? Like, are you okay with them doing that to your business and scaring your bands?
No, but it's also a draw, and I know a lot of places if they market that they're they're haunted, then people come and things
Something
like that.
interesting.
So, yeah, and even whenever you have any place that's haunted, I always tell people you have to remember the ghosts were there first.
Right.
So you're coming into their home or their
guest.
business. So, you should always be able to coexist.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
So what do you think is as far as Alton goes, like if you would say like with the most haunted building, like in Madison, Wisconsin, there's a place called the Orpheum Theater. Mm-hmm. And it's right on the main drag, 2 blocks away from the state capitol. Been open for since like the late 1920s. And there's at least 7 different characters that people have stories about.
Okay.
What do you think is the most haunted building in Alton? Like what that has the most stories?
I'll tell you what, for me personally, and this would be, of all the locations I've been, the one that I've had the most experiences in would be the First Unitarian Church. It's still an active church, and it's actually the last location that we go to on our tours.
Okay.
And again, we always tell people we can never promise you anything's going to happen, but usually if it does, it's going to be there.
Okay.
The cool thing about the building is that it's got a lot of history to it. Nothing dark or anything like that. So there, never nothing to be afraid of or anything like that. But whenever we're there, and I mean, when I'm up there telling stories and people are looking at me, I'll see them trying to look behind me, and at that point, okay, I know they're seeing something. And I always also on my tours, I always tell people, don't look to me for protection because I'll be the first one to knock you down to save myself.
Right, he's the guy.
So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, just listen for the little girl
I know.
scream. And
If
you'll
you
know.
see me running, don't ask, just run, follow me, or whatever. But I always see people looking behind me, so I know something might be going on behind me. A lot of people see like dark, shadowy figures moving around. Or when I'm looking at the crowd, I'll see people in the very back pew keep looking behind them. And then I know that they're either feeling somebody behind them or maybe somebody's touching their shoulders. So things like that happen a lot. Usually at least one person experiences something inside the church.
It's pretty good odds.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing though is sometimes it's between the ears.
When you're anticipating.
Right, yeah, you freak yourself out and kind of convince
Do that all
yourself
the
that you're
time.
experiencing something. But there's also been times where, like, I know on one of our tours, as everybody was sitting in the pews, you could actually hear somebody walking down the aisle that runs in between the pews. Every single person on the tour all turned and were looking at where the sound was coming from and following it down the aisle. So at that point, I can't say every single person, but I will say at least 2/3 of the people experienced the same exact thing. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, and actually a similar story happened on one of my tours where I saw a shadow figure actually moving down the aisle in between all the groups of people, but nobody was seeing it. And the only reason I saw it was because there's a light source that hits the armrests on all the pews. Okay. And as I'm looking down the aisle, I could see one of those pew armrests getting dark. And then the next one got dark. And then when the third one got dark, the first one lit back up. So that's why I was seeing it, was because it was actually blocking out the light that was hitting these armrests. And then whenever it got to about the 4th pew from the front, it wasn't blocking light anymore, but then you could hear a creak. Almost like it sat down in one of the pews.
Interesting.
Yeah, and where it sat down, there wasn't anybody sitting, which I thought was kind of, it was cool, but then it was like also kind of weird, So,
what's going on?
But yeah, so the church, I would say by far is my favorite location as far as activity.
Okay,
Sounds very
and you can go and you can check that out on the Haunted Alton tour.
Yeah, the Alton Hauntings.
Alton
Hauntings, yeah. And if you guys go to altonhauntings.com, you can get on tours already. We have a tour starting up in April, and then they run through, I believe, July. We try to not do tours in August because it gets so hot.
Yeah.
And then we'll start back up in September.
Is it a walking tour?
It is. We actually do walking and bus tours.
Oh, nice.
The walking tour, it's usually... It kind of depends. Like I said, I can keep talking. So if the crowd's really into it, then I'll just keep telling stories. But there's hills, it's walking. So sometimes you get people who are kind of starting to drop off a little bit. So then we can kind of speed things up and cut it a little shorter. But, the neat thing about the walking tour is you're actually going in front of these locations, instead of looking out a window at the location. But the neat thing about the bus tours is they can go to places we can't walk to.
Cover more ground.
Yeah, so, the bus tour goes out to the city cemetery. They go out to Hop Hollow Road, which is a story that ties into the Confederate prison.
Cool.
And then, there's a few, sometimes they go out to the Pious Allbird Cave. So there's a lot more that they can do that we can't.
Okay, cool.
Very cool.
Now, not only, so Alton Hauntings, you got the tours, been in that for a decade, really into it, and done investigations, and you're also an author.
Yes. Yeah, I've and that was, I think, the crowning achievement for myself because when I was a kid, when I got older, I wanted to be an author. An author and an archaeologist was that was my plan. And I struck out on both. But as I got older,
or did you?
Yeah, well, at least not on one of them. But yeah, as I got older, and I was enjoying reading ghost stories, but then I was like, man, why can't I tell my own? So when I would speak at different events with Troy, people would ask me, well, when are you going to write a book? When are you going to write a book? And I said, you know what, maybe I will. And then I sat down finally and actually wrote it. And my first one came out in 2007, and it was called The Lighter Side of Darkness, and it was Misadventures into the Unknown.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, when I tell stories, I always try. I want you to learn something, and I want to make you laugh, and then I want to scare the piss out of you. So
sure.
So just when you feel a little comfort, then we jab it in there with a little scare. So that was why the title's The Lighter Side of Darkness. Well, then my second book, which came out in 2013, was called Lights Out. And it's just a lot of different stories that from investigations I've done, as well as stories that have been told to me by people who experienced them. And it might have been a place where, it didn't open itself to investigations any longer.
Okay.
But as my first book was pretty well entirely my experiences, and the second book was a little half and half. So the cool thing about that second book, though, was a lot of the stories are places you've never heard of. They're people's homes. And, they're not things that have been
Public
written
places.
about all the time.
Sure, and it's not a tour you can go on because nobody's going to be like,
Right.
yeah, I want you to people to tell my home is haunted.
And it's coming from the people who live them. And, it was cool because, like, as long as I've been doing this and I thought I've heard everything, there's so much more, So it's like some of these people were telling me these stories. I'm like, oh my God, that's so awesome. They're like, no, it wasn't, I'm like, well, it's all... Only because I didn't live it. It was
Right.
awesome to me. Well, the third book, which is actually coming out hopefully this spring, is trying to get back to more investigations. So this one is going to be called Ghosts Never Say Boo. And
Okay.
because one, I'm a big Goonies fan, and Goonies never say die.
Right, okay.
And then when I was watching, I was sitting there, when they said that Goonies never say die, and I'm like, Ghosts never say boo either. So then that's why I went with that title. So... of all the recordings I've ever done with ghosts, EVP and just on video and stuff, I've never had a ghost say boo. So
Okay.
yeah,
Well, there you go.
yeah. So that's why I thought it'd be a pretty cool title. So that one's hopefully coming out this spring.
Very
That's
cool.
awesome.
Congratulations.
Okay. And people can find information on that. Like we'll put a link in the show notes and stuff, but people can find that where?
Well, I actually just started a website called Ghosts Never Say Boo.
Okay.
And I'm going to be selling the books on there soon, and we're still working on all the shopping cart stuff. It literally just launched.
Cool.
Probably launched earlier than it should have because it's not quite ready. But
Nothing's ever
no,
ready.
it's not. I mean, it'll be constantly getting fixed, and things like that. But also, I'm putting on an event in April in Mascoutah, Illinois, and it's called the Spring Spooktacular. And
Okay.
I got Troy Taylor's going to be coming down. He's going to be speaking at it. I got John Winterbauer, which he lives up by Springfield, and he's going to be talking about ghosts from that area. And then I got a woman named Sylvia Schultz, which she does a lot with the Peoria State Hospital in Peoria, Illinois. And she wrote a book called Fractured Spirits. So she's going to come down. So those three and myself, we're going to be speaking all day. If anybody's interested in going to that, it's $10 a person, be about 5 hours long. And we'll do food and tennis prizes and things like that.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, the Spooktacular.
Let's come
And we'll
back and go to it.
We'll put a link to that in the show notes.
Cool,
if
yeah, I
you wanna
appreciate
talk
it.
about it. So
Very cool.
No, that's awesome. Now I had a quick question for you. Now you guys you and Troy, you were saying that you guys did a TV reality
Yeah.
show, right?
Yeah, yep.
What was the name of that again?
It was Mysterious Worlds, America's Ghost Hunters.
Okay.
Yep.
And we interview a lot of these authors and a lot of people who are talking heads on these shows and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And they always say like, "Oh, they twisted my words and everything like." So, what do you think that show got right, and what do you think that show got wrong about? Because I know a lot of people who listen to the podcast are also big fans of those ghost adventure kind of shows.
Yeah, this this show actually did pretty well because they actually we kind of briefly mentioned it earlier. They took all these different teams from across the country that used different methods of investigation. So we used history. We talked about the one who used EVP. There was a couple that used different forms of just technology that I can't afford, type thing. And then there was another team which trained their dog to sniff out spirits.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Interesting.
I thought it was interesting too because, in my opinion, in order to train a dog to sniff out something, you'd have to hold it in front of their nose so they would learn the smell of it. So I didn't really grasp how you could train a dog to do
Right,
this.
they just went to the morgue and just,
Right, yeah. Smell this.
But pets do often.
yeah, exactly.
You can see them, they perk up and they see
Right,
something or
and,
hear something. And
so I think it's not necessarily a training thing, but more of they just have this ability.
Yeah.
So the show was cool because all these different teams showed their methods of investigating. There was nothing twisted or changed about it. And then at the end, all the investigative teams all met at Eastern State Penitentiary and did an investigation together. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend that part of it. But what we did here in town was really cool, and we actually filmed it at the First Unitarian Church, and we were trying to prove that place might have been a stop on the Underground Railroad.
okay.
Because the basement of that building is very haunted, and we don't think it's tied to what's going on upstairs.
Okay.
And if it was a stop on the Underground Railroad, that could explain some things that are happening. And the church is burned down twice. And one of the times it burned down was in the 1850s, which is kind of
right
when
around
the
Underground Railroad
exactly.
time.
So we kind of wonder. Well, we actually started crawling underneath the. Let me go back. When Troy asked me to be on the show, I thought it was going to be my big break in Hollywood. And I'm still here. So it did not work out.
You dieted down.
Right, yeah.
Got plastic surgery. I did the same thing.
Well, I got all dressed up for it, and I showed up, and Troy's like, "Man, you're dressed up," and I said, "Well, yeah, we're gonna be on TV." Well, he was wearing a T-shirt and jean shorts and combat boots, and he said, "Well, why'd you get dressed up?"
Because jorts look great on
Yeah,
TV.
right.
I mean, I think they look great.
I used to wear them
all the time.
And then I said, "Well, what are we gonna be doing?" And he said, "Well, we're gonna be crawling in the crawl space of the church." I'm like, "Oh, you didn't tell me that." So yeah, so we go down into the basement once we start doing this segment, and I had to wear one of those hats with the camera on the bill. And a little hip pack, real cool hip pack with the recording device in it. And we jumped up into the crawl space and started crawling. Now, we're underneath the sanctuary floor when we're doing this. And no lights are on. We had flashlights, so we're crawling back. And we got back like 10 feet. And Troy, who had a brand new digital camera, fully charged, all of a sudden wasn't working. So battery's completely drained. Yeah.
What happened to us?
So we're thinking, maybe something's happening, or maybe there's just something wrong with the camera. So we kind of fiddle around with the camera a little bit, try to fix it, and couldn't get anything to work. So we're like, forget the camera, we'll just keep moving. So we started crawling further back, and I always tell people when I tell the story that right whenever we jumped up, I got a huge orb on camera, but it was actually Troy's ass. Because that was my view the whole time. So
bottom.
Yeah, he had been working out. But whenever we started crawling further back, we got to the far back left corner, and we found an entrance to a room. And you could actually crawl into this room and probably sit in it. The interesting thing about this room is it's made with the same stone as the rest of the foundation. It's outside the original foundation, but it's not on the floor plans. So why would this room be built? I mean, it had to be built when everything else was built.
There was a plan for it.
Exactly.
It just wasn't in the
And
plan.
that's
right.
cool.
And it's not a thing where Sunday service rolls around and they have 20 extra people and, hey, go down to that room where we store those hymnals and somebody's crawling underneath the church to go get it. The room was built to hide something and, it wasn't that.
Huh.
So we're all excited. We come crawling back out and the producers are excited and they want to look at the footage. So they get the recording device and they start watching it. And shortly after Troy's camera went dead, that camera went dead. So all the footage that we got from, the point of starting to crawl back and actually finding the room, there was nothing there.
So, but did anybody ever go in the room, like the cask of Amontillado?
No, you actually can't because there's ductwork covering it, so all that would have to be removed to actually be able to slip into it.
Wow.
So nobody will ever see the bodies hidden in there.
No, they're still there. So when I told the producers, they said, well, hook me up with another battery, another tape or whatever, and I'll jump back up there and crawl back. So they set me up, and I started crawling, and all I had was a little mag light, to light the way. And I turned around and shined a light, and I said, hey, guys, can you shine some more light for me? Everybody had went upstairs. So here I am in this creepy, dark basement in the crawl space, crawling, and
it's terrifying.
No, if anything was going to get me, I was just going to have to roll over and take it. Because, it wasn't like I was going to be able to get up and take off running. And so I crawled so fast. I always compare it to like a cat in a litter box, the way I was throwing dirt behind me trying to get back to that room and got back there and took the recording device out and actually made sure it was working, recorded the room, and then ran back upstairs and went off on everybody. So, I've been in that church so many times and, I've never ever felt threatened, but that was just a little too much for me.
That sounds intense.
Yeah, so with the show, the show was cool. A lot of the other shows, people always ask me, like, what shows I watch. I don't watch any of them. I don't like the way that the investigators conduct investigations. I had the opportunity to investigate a home in Belleville a few years back, and actually I wrote about it in my second book.
Bell Vegas,
we'll call it that. Yeah. And I wrote about it in my second book because this woman who lived in his house, she told me all these stories. The stories were awesome. I couldn't wait to investigate it. We set up a date to do it, and then she called me and said that she's gonna have to reschedule. And I said, okay. And she said, so when you guys come into the home, she said, how do you treat the spirits? And I said, with respect. And she said, you don't antagonize them or make them mad or anything like that? And I said, no. I said, we don't do that. And I said, we treat them with the respect as if they were alive. And, it's no different now. And she said, okay, well, just kind of making sure. And I said, well, that's fine. Well, then we set up another date. And then like 2 days before that date, she called me and canceled again. And, she wasn't sure when she could reschedule. She just said to call her back in a week. So, she asked me again though about if we threatened the spirits or anything. And I said, no. Well, then when I called her back, she's like, yeah, where things are still a little hectic. And I said, well, are you changing your mind about the investigation? And she said, yeah, I am kinda. And I said, I know you were asking a lot of questions about how we treat the spirits. And she said, yeah. I said, do you watch Ghost Adventures? And she's like, yeah, all the time. And I said, okay, we don't do investigations like that. And, but in the end, though, it's her home and she lives with these ghosts. And,
right.
So if she doesn't want us in there, then we're not, I understand, we're not coming in. But I did ask her, I said, can I write about your story and also write about the fact that you watch these shows and this is how you think investigations are done? And she said, well, absolutely. So, I think in a way some of the shows are hurting the field for a couple reasons. One, the people who have these homes see that and think that that's how investigations are done. And two, the people who never did investigations before and are learning from these shows, they think that that's how they're supposed to be done. And it's not. So, some of the shows I'll watch just because of the location that they're going to. Like if they're going to Gettysburg, I'm going to watch it. If they're going to Waverly Hills, I'm going to watch it. But for the most part, I don't watch them. The only ones I'll maybe watch are the My Ghost stories. When the people who actually tell their own stories. It's not Sometimes they have investigators who come in and do investigations, but for the most part, it's focused on the individual and their experiences. So I watch those.
So when you've been on an investigation, have you ever had anything that you saw? You're like, hey, like you said you've seen 5 full figure. Mm-hmm. Like class 5 free-forming vapors or whatever. But
free-floating vaporous.
That's class 5, whatever they say in Tobin Spirit Guide.
Yeah, sure.
Have you ever seen anything where it's like, hey, I can't believe we got that? Like, I can't believe that's real.
Where I'm seeing it with my eyes or something that we're actually capturing on video?
Either capturing or you're seeing with your eyes. To me, usually someone who's a reasonable person, if they say like, you know what? This thing came up, tapped me on the shoulder, and then ran away, and just flew away and disappeared. Like I tend to believe that as long as the rest of their thing, they're fairly rational.
Right.
Like one eye above the other.
Yeah. Twitching. And
twitching.
Yeah. One of my favorite stories, and obviously power of suggestion is very strong when you go into a haunted location. And we were doing an investigation of a house in a really small farming town called Fayetteville, Illinois, and I knew going into the home that it was haunted by a little boy and a little girl. And oddly enough, the little girl was only seen outside and the little boy is only seen inside. They never crossed paths. It turns out that the 2 kids actually did pass in the building to smallpox. And so yeah, very sad story, but it's actually an incredible story, but we probably don't have time to go into the whole thing. But as far as my investigation, I knew
they never were in the same place at the same time?
Yeah,
it's like Lady Hawk.
That's right, yes. Superman. Whenever I went and did the investigation, we were up in one of the back bedrooms on the second floor, and going into it, this was not like a full-fledged investigation. This was more of interview process before I brought the whole team in, because sometimes when you go into a location that's haunted, you can get a feel for the person and know like, if I walk into a house and there's like 40 bottles of pills sitting on the counter, that's probably explaining what's going on.
Sure.
It's just the pills.
The pharmacy in the bathroom.
So, but whenever I went to this lady, she was actually a friend of a friend, and I went there with one of my friends who was actually the tie between us, and did the interviews, and then after that I went upstairs and just wanted to take some pictures for a little bit in some of the rooms. So we went upstairs into one of the bedrooms. The lights were out. I was standing by the doorway that leads out to the hall. My friend was standing on the corner over here to my left, and we're kind of looking out at the room this way. Well, I ended up taking a picture with my digital camera, and just as I was getting ready to look down at the screen to see, what I got before it went away, my friend took a picture. When her flash lit up in the room, standing in the very far right corner was this heavy-set man. He had a white T-shirt on, blue overalls, balding on top, clear as day. But it's the time of a flash lighting up the room is how quick this was.
Just an image.
Right.
Flash.
Yeah. So I'm like, immediately, he's not supposed to be there. And I flipped the light switch on and looked, and he was gone. Now, right outside the doorway here where the hall is, there's a window. And on that window was some blinds, had the little string with the cap on it. As soon as I flipped that light on and looked and he wasn't there anymore, those blinds started moving. That little string started swinging back and forth like something had just went out of the room and brushed past it. Goosebumps, hair was standing up.
I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I know, I get goosebumps.
Farmer Joe or whatever.
Right, exactly. Well, I told my friend, I'm like, did you see him? And she's like, well, no. And I explained to her what I saw, and I said, let's go downstairs for a second and talk to the homeowner. So I said, okay. I said, you talk about the little boy and the little girl that haunted the house. And she's like, yeah. And I said, anything else that you haven't told me? And she said, well, as far as hauntings, I don't know. And I said, well, what about deaths? She said, well, supposedly the grandfather passed away in the upstairs bedroom. And like, which room was that? And it was the exact room that I saw him. Now, if she would have told me, that this older gentleman had died, it's a farmhouse. Put two and two together, I'm going to see this older gentleman farmer.
Right.
But she never told me that. If power of suggestion was playing into this thing, I would have saw what I thought the little boy looked like. Because I knew the boy haunted the house.
Right.
And so I wouldn't have seen this.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, but it's just the speed of a flash lighting up the room. That's
cool.
how quick it was, but it was just so clear. So that was one of those times where it's like, you're in the room. You know who's in the room with you. So when you see that third person that's not supposed to be there, it's just that initial.
That's a great.
very
And
cool.
I'm always interested in, it's like, to ask people, well, what made you believe? What was the thing? And
Right.
That's the kind of thing. It's like, well, I saw something that I couldn't explain, and then that backed up 5 minutes later.
Right. And and that's another thing with Troy actually, and something I learned from him is when people say, you know what, I don't believe in ghosts, but, and you always wait for that but, because something really cool is about to follow it.
Right.
And a lot of times those people who say that, those are like the level-headed people. They're, they're the ones who don't believe in this stuff, but they had something happen that they can't explain.
Yeah, there was, I remember one person that ended up eventually working for my ghost tour. Like, one time we're just talking about something, and then he's like, yeah, I didn't really believe in ghosts until I was just hanging out one time, and then I just saw a World War I soldier just walk right through the room. And then I was like, that was weird. And it's like,
There's something to this thing.
If it was in Madison, it could just be a
this
hipster.
was in Florida.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
It could be in Madison, it might be a hipster.
There you go.
On his way to bar or whatever.
No, but one more time, Luke, let's tell the people at home where they can find your stuff. And this is, I could listen to your story.
Oh yeah,
me too.
No, I know. I'm trying to
Sorry,
limit
it's fun.
myself to not take up all your time. So
No, but this is
Thank
this
you.
is great.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so-
No, the website is ghostneversayboo.com, and you'll soon be able to buy my books there. Obviously, if you go into Barnes & Noble, you can order them through there, or Amazon. You can get them that way, too. And then we'll have the third one here, hopefully, within a few months. Will be available as well. If anybody's interested in going on the Alton Hauntings ghost tours, you can go to altonhauntings.com. And one other thing actually I'd like to plug is our annual conference that we do every year, the Haunted America Conference.
My sister's been to that. She loves it.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I love going to this thing. It's so much fun, and they have such great speakers. But this year it's going to be back in Alton. And it was in Alton every year for a long time, and then it shifted to Decatur. So now, after a little bit of a hiatus, it's back here in Alton. So
Great.
that's going to be on June 19th and 20th, I believe. It's a Friday and a Saturday.
Okay.
And, Mark Nesbitt, the speaker, he's a lot of Civil War that's up in the Gettysburg area. He's going to be
cool.
there for that. And Troy obviously will be there. So some great speakers, and it's always a lot of fun.
All right. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Let's
Thank you,
give
Luke, and
live
thank you,
podcast.
Meredith and Maybuzz. We really appreciate your letting us come here and do this, and thanks to anyone watching online.
Yeah.
And of course the live audience. So, should we play a few songs for you guys?
Yeah.
Everybody okay with that? Little music.
Okay, we'll play a little music.
We'll play a few songs for you that were inspired by some of the topics that we've covered on our podcast. Some of them have to do with ghosts, and others other things. So we'll just switch it up here.
Okay, this is a song that was influenced by a podcast we were working on about reptilians. So this one guy, David Icke, he's got a whole mythology based around the fact that the British royal family, all of our presidents and everything are actually reptiles from another planet, alien lizards called the Anunnaki, and that they rule the world. And so for our Election Day special last year, we talked about the Anunnaki and wrote this song to go with it. And we released this song today. It's on our EP, El Chupacabra, and this song is called Hadi Illuminati.
And she won't, like a vision of the diner, come to life. And she moves and gives you the all-seeing eye. And you know right away she's the spider, you're the fly. Powerless and frail, rates right off the scale, you're terrified. In a world of slaves and masters, who do you think you are? She knows exactly what you're here after. Who do you think you are? You know your own, bought and sold. You know your own, bought and sold. And you walk compelled and controlled without a clue. And you move a puppet on a string, you're a fool. Like a moth to a flame, a thorn in a game that you'll lose. Suffering under the delusion that you choose. In a world of slaves and masters, who do you think you are? She knows exactly what you're here after. Who do you think you are? You know your own, bought and sold. You know your own, bought and sold. Thank you.
Oh, thanks. You guys are very kind. Thank you.
Okay, this next track was this is directly using Ghost Story as a metaphor. This song is called Skeleton Key, and it's about, it uses the metaphor of, well, the thing is, a lot of people talk about ghosts as being people that walk around and they're just trying to be seen. Spirits are just trying to be noticed, and that's why they knock things over and touch us and stuff like that. And this song is about feeling like that in your own life, and it's called The Skeleton Key. I was a ghost without a story, a specter looking for a past, waiting and just watching all these lives pass by so fast. I wrote a tale without a hero, I wrote a song without a tune, but all stories need an ending, and I hope that ending's you. So hear my prayer and let me know that you can see me there. Exercise, take my hand and let's go toward the light. For you're the skeleton key to set my spirit free tonight. I was a grave without a headstone, wandering the forest, alone in a crowd as a soul that's dispossessed. I was a murder without a body, I was a crime without a scene, but all done it's me to who, and I hope you'll hear my plea. So hear my prayer and let me know that you can see me there. Exercise, take my hand and let's go toward the light. For you're the skeleton key to set my spirit free tonight. Whoa. Let me know that you can see me there. Exercise, take my hand and let's go toward the light. For you're the skeleton key to set my spirit free tonight. Thank you. All right. Well, let's do a regular song.
Ooh, a regular
They
song.
don't have to all be ghost songs.
That's true. That's true.
I just love it when they're all ghost songs. Anyway, let's do Pretend. And so this next song is about growing up in a small town. And Alton's kind of a small town, but it's close enough to a big city where it's kind of still suburban. And I had the same kind of experience. I grew up in a town called Big Bend, Wisconsin, which was a suburb of Milwaukee, and population about 1,250.
Including the cows?
Well, with the cows, it was actually like 3,500. But so sometimes when you feel that a lot of the people that have left the town, well, you want to catch up with them, but they kind of feel like the people that have left have passed you by. And this song is about that, and it's called Pretend.
I think I lost you along the road,
Because I didn't know how to grow up.
maybe that's why I feel so old.
My life flashes before my eyes.
Maybe we can talk over a beer.
About the way we think things ought to be.
We can try to remember how we got here.
And whatever became of me, wouldn't it be fun to pretend that the earth was round and we were 16 again?
We could drive all night until the sun comes up, my friend, and I listen for your name in the wind.
And I think I missed the train.
Well, I guess I should have bought a ticket.
I don't think I ever changed.
Time slips by and I'm still the same.
We were running hand in hand.
Well, I didn't know you'd go so fast.
That's why I just don't understand
how you reach your destination and I'm still living in the past. Wouldn't it be fun to pretend that the earth was round and we were 16 again? We could drive all night until the sun comes up, my friend, and I listen for your name in the wind.
Last one.
I'm the last one standing here.
Just a relic.
I'm just a relic in the museum of our lives.
I'll be waiting.
Well, I'll be waiting when you come back. I'll be the one who's just a step behind the time. Wouldn't it be fun to pretend that the earth was round and we were 16 again? We could drive all night until the sun comes up, my friend, and I listen for your name in the wind. And I listen for your name in the wind. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right. Let's do a couple more for him. I think we should do another one from the podcast. A couple weeks ago, we lost one of our personal heroes, and that's Leonard Nimoy. Growing up, watched his show In Search Of all the time, and that was one of the first things. Like, Mr. Spock made it cool to like UFOs, and I'll always love him for that. And just the breadth of awesome things that Leonard Nimoy did. He just was an inspiration, so we devoted an entire episode to him. And just to talk about the cool stuff that he'd done. And, well, no one else was using this metaphor to do a tribute to Leonard Nimoy. There's a movie called Star Trek V. And Star Trek V is pretty fairly maligned as a horrible movie. William Shatner directed it. I don't know what they were expecting. And in it, Spock's brother, who they never talked about in the TV series, was looking for Vulcan heaven. And he thought he'd find the source of all creation at the center of the galaxy. And the name of the planet he was looking for was Shakari. So we thought we'd call a song Shakari and dedicate it to Mr. Spock. And here it is. Being young ain't always fun, and growing up ain't easy when you're just a little different and your best friend is your TV. You might never be a hero or get along with your peers, but you might learn to be human from a dude with pointy ears. Well, the bad guys were always wrong and the good guys always won, and we learned how to play the game. But now my favorite shows, they all star anti-heroes, and reruns just ain't the same. In a world a little sick, we could use some more logic. And who taught you the needs of the many are greater than the needs of the one? And who taught you that just wearing a goatee makes you an evil son of a gun? Well, the only one who tried to talk to the devil in the dark, 'cause you were bred from different stock, like those of us who missed the mark. See you in Shakari, my mister.
Mr. Spock stopped the jocks taking over in Space Seed, and he always kept his cool when Bones would call him a half-breed. And we all tried the nerve pinch on other kids on the playground. Till 14 at least I still believe that move could knock you out. Damn, In Search of was the show that made it cool for UFOs. It weirded out my little mind, as embarrassing as it could get. We sang a song about the Hobbit. Somebody must have been high in a world a little sick. We could use some more logic. And who taught you the needs of the many are greater than the needs of the one? And who taught you just wearing a goatee makes you an evil son of a gun? From Captain Kirk's superego into the dark mind of Van Gogh, so much of what I know came from your heart. We'll see you in Shakari, my mister.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right.
You guys are really nice. It's exciting to be here in Alton for the very first time. We've never.
Yeah. And the best part is that every time I go into a town, I try to go on the haunted tour, and we did one better by bringing the haunted
That's
tour
right.
to us here. So this is even better.
Yes.
Really tremendous.
So much fun.
Anyway, we'll play this song and then let everybody relax and enjoy their coffee.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for hanging out
Thank
with
you
us
so
today
much, you
and
guys.
putting
Thanks
up
for
with us
listening.
and all that. Thank you
Appreciate
very
it.
much to Meredith and Tia and Mavis.
Yes, thank
You
you,
guys are
Meredith.
really sweet, and the coffee was excellent. I mean, the coffee was excellent, which is great. Right here. So I'm having a nice time. Anyway, this song is dedicated to anybody in love. So if you're in love, and especially at home, if you're in love, this song is for you. I waited so long for you to call, but now you're finally here and I'm a wreck. I worked out a little, I even did my hair, but I'm half the man I used to be back there. I hope you have an ugly boyfriend. I hope you're working at a car wash. I hope your life went down the drain and everything is not okay. I hope your best years passed you up. Well, I dodged a bullet, one or two since then, but you ain't the only one who calls me up. But I'm still the jerk who listens to your problems, but I never told you all those times I wish you died on Smallpox Island. I hope you have an ugly boyfriend. I hope you're working at a car wash. I hope your life went down the drain and everything is not okay. I hope your best years passed you up. I hope your life sucks. Well, I'm eating out my heart, and I'm eating out my heart, and I'm eating out my heart. I'm eating out my heart. Well, I'm not happy for you that you're a better person without me.
picture on Instagram. When I'm too numb, when I'm too numb to care, yeah. Eat me, I'm just too numb to care, yeah. I hope you have an ugly boyfriend. I hope you're working at a car wash. I hope your life went down the drain and everything is not okay. I hope your best years pass you. Guess what? I hate you. Thank you.
Such a negative way to end the show. It's horrible.
I don't mean you guys. You guys are awesome. Thank you for spending your Tuesday night with us. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. You can find us online at othersidepodcast.com. Until next time, see you on the other side.